that were passed on to me, grandmother to grandchild, over the years. And now, the other thing. Can anyone guess what it might be that you need to tell a good story? Yes?
The teller itself.
The what?
The teller.
The teller. Oh, yes, of course, I need to be here, but there's something much more important than me. What is it? Imagination? That is another thing. What? Yes.
Hear the story?
You. Exactly. People to hear the story, and I'm so glad you're here, because the book does not come alive and help me to tell the stories unless you are here to listen and unless you are ready for the stories. Now, are you ready for stories? Oh, I think I might have told you before, but I'm a little hard of hearing. So I didn't quite hear that. Let's see. Did the book hear it? No. We're going to try it one more time, but I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. And then you're going to say, I'm ready. 1, 2, 3. I'm ready. Let's see if that book will book. Maybe it's ready. Let's see. Are you ready, book?
Let's go.
So, it says there's nothing here so far. We're going to have to do it one more time. 1, 2, 3. I'm ready! Yes. There are some stories, and tonight there are 2 stories. Oh, 2 of my very favorites. One is called Polly Grundy is Dead. That seems like it might be a scary story, so be prepared. And the other, well, we'll save the other for as we move along. Let's see. What is that first story about? Can anybody tell me what it might be about? Yes. What is it, do you think?
It's a look.
It is a look. It's a look from an animal, and the animal is a cat. So the first story is about a cat. And this story actually started in my great-great-great-great-great-grandmother's kitchen. So that's 5 greats. And let's hope that the story is 5 times great as well. Anyway, my 5th great-grandmother was in her kitchen getting ready to make food for the entire week. Can you imagine that? It smelled so good with her baking bread, and it was nice and warm and inviting. And well, it was inviting not only to people, but a little cat decided that it would also come into the house. Now, they had never had pets before, and my great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, so my 5th great-grandfather, he didn't like animals at all. Now, does anybody here have cats? You have cats?
I have a cat on my cousin's house.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I'm going to have to ask you another question about cats, and I'll bet you guys can answer it in a couple of minutes. But this cat happened to be the most beautiful cat that my 5th great-grandmother had ever seen in her entire life. It was bright orange, and it had bright blue eyes. And she had never seen a cat like that. And well, the neighbors, they were all quite afraid of this cat, and they were rumoring that perhaps the cat might indeed be a witch instead. Now, they didn't think this cat was a witch because it was so beautiful and so kind, and well, it came in and it did the most peculiar thing. It sat at the kitchen table and put its paws on the table and looked at her right in the eye, and she started talking to it, and it seemed to be understanding every word that she said. It was amazing, and she loved having the company because my 5th great-grandfather, well, he liked to just sit in the living room with a book and a pipe and put his feet up. And he wasn't very good company at all. So my 5th grade grandmother thought, it's wonderful. I would love to have a cat. So I have a cat, and that is that. So she wanted this lovely cat, and all the neighbors stopped coming by. They were a little nervous that perhaps it really was a witch. Do you think cats could be a witch? No? Well, the neighbors sure thought that it was a witch. And so they stopped coming by altogether. And while 5th grade grandfather, he started to come around to this cat because each night while he was reading his book, the cat would come into the living room and would curl up on his lap, and it was the perfect place to place the book. So one night he said, well, we have a cat, and that is that. And he liked this cat pretty much, and that cat lived with them for some period of time until this one night. Well, 5th grade granddad, he was off with his friends, and he was coming home, and he saw the most peculiar thing, the strangest thing he'd ever seen. There were 5 cats just at the bend in front of his house. And now he looked at those cats, and they were doing something strange. How do cats normally stand? With 4 feet? Yes. Well, these cats were standing up on their back 2 feet with their hands on their hips. And they were looking at each other, and he thought he could hear them talking. Okay, cat experts in the room, do cats talk? No, cats do not talk. So he moved a little closer to the cats, and he thought, I definitely think these cats are talking to each other. And when the cats saw them, they went right over to him, and they surrounded him in a circle, and they all were standing up, talking to him with their hands on their hips, and they said, please, sir, would you please tell dear Aunt Stephanie that Polly Grundy is dead? He couldn't believe what he heard. He started walking away. He's shaking his head. He's covering his eyes. This cannot possibly be happening. These cats are standing like human beings, and they're talking. Cats do not talk. So he thought for sure he was crazy, and he ran to his house, and he ran to his wife. And he said, dear, the strangest thing just happened. And he sat in the chair because he was so shaken up. And she went and got him a cup of tea, and it was lovely, and calmed him down just a little bit. And she said, now you must tell me, dear, please tell me the story. Why? Why do you think that you're crazy? And so he started in on the story about the cats. And the cats are standing on their back feet. And they have their hands on their hips, and they're talking to him. And they said the strangest thing. They said, please tell Aunt Stephanie that Polly Grundy is dead. And now we haven't forgotten that this lovely orange cat is living with them. And that cat also did a strange thing. She jumped up from the chair that she was sitting on in the kitchen, and she stood on her back feet, put her hands on her hips, and she said, I am Aunt Stephanie, and if Polly Grundy is dead, that means that I am the queen of all the witches. And then she ran out the door, and they were so surprised and so frightened they didn't know what to do. And then after a few minutes, he said, well, there's bad news, I guess, that the neighbors were right, and we had had a witch in our house the entire time. Well, the other bad news, she said, was that we have no cat, and that is that. The cat is gone. Well, perhaps we could get another cat. And he looked at her and said, no, thank you. I have had enough of all cats. Perhaps we shall get a dog. So that was the first story in the book. Is that okay? Yeah. All right, let's see. Well, let's see. Do you have any more? maybe you guys aren't ready. 1, 2, what are we gonna say? You gonna say? Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. I'm ready! Oh, look, it's so much easier now. Oh boy, this one's a little scarier. This is a story that happened not too long ago, and it is about my cousins. They're not very nice cousins, they're kind of bad cousins, and one of them is named David, and the other is Arthur. And well, so my cousins, David and Arthur, like to play tricks. Let's see. And they love to play tricks on my Uncle Donald. And now Uncle Donald was a scaredy cat. He was afraid of everything. What was that first story about? Cats. He was afraid of cats almost most of all.